What I'd like you to do is to choose one of the mentors you've had in your life, share the story of that mentoring, the arrangement, the relationship, and what it meant for you. So this is sort of like a good-hearted story about your extraordinary experience with a mentor. Now, I can start off and give you a chance to think about what you'd like to share because I've already had this in my head, right? So, shall I start?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, I've had 5 great mentors in my life, and they're almost go for like 1970, 80, 90, 2000. It almost goes over a 10-year span. But the one that I want to share was the first one that I had. Now, unfortunately, I can't remember his name, but I'll always remember what he did for me. And I was in the world of play and recreation. It was a time in the 1970s. I was sort of in the high school, tail end of high school, going into the first part of university. And I was playing in the world of adventure playgrounds. These are the ones where children built the playgrounds during the summer, right? You had your wood, your nails, and it was very much an adventure. It was truly an experience. And it's kind of interesting that they've cycled around now about 40 years later, they've come back to the foreground again, where we were really prevalent at the time back in the 70s. And he took me aside and he said, this summer, I know that you're a staff member, but next summer, let's move you up to manager of a playground site. And I went, okay, I'm game. All right. And so he helped me. And during that time, what he brought to me was the importance of the creative process and understanding the connection between creativity and innovation. And ever since then, I've always appreciated that because what it did is it got me started down the path of creative writing and being able to create something and then find ways in which to use it, to create something and find ways to use it, sort of creativity, innovation, creativity and innovation, and this concept of breathing it. And this was also a time where we were starting to figure out how do we use television to be able to support children's play. And this is when Sesame Street was coming out and all of that from a North American TV programming, which I believe has gone around the world now, right? And it was him who got me into this world of this exploration. And I thank him so much for what he did for me because he just opened up this way of looking at the world that really became useful is because later on, I actually took off on what was supposed to be a 6-month trip. I came back 4 years later, having served as a recreation officer in the outback of Western Australia and looking at playground designs on my trip from Kathmandu in Nepal to London, England, overland, stopping in and talking to people about the playgrounds they were creating and the recreation programs they were doing. It just opened up so much more for me. And my way of summarizing this is he gave whole new meaning to the word recreation. It was about recreation. Recreation is about recreation, about recreation. And even more was the realization that if I move the C and the R kind of combination, reaction, creation, right? Mm-hmm. And I just went, okay, this is really beautiful. Reaction, right? Creation, all these kind of things that made a lot of sense for me. So that's a story I share with you. So Either one of you want to go with a story and to share it with us, with the world?
Okay, I'll go then.
Yeah.
So this goes back to my time in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and I was stationed in the Northwest Territories at the time, and I would have things that would happen in the workplace that I would get quite agitated and angry over, and what I used to do, and sometimes I was extremely angry to the point of not being able to rationally think my way through things. And so I would go to one of the senior members who I actually had an informal mentoring relationship with. And he would mirror my anger and become quite agitated himself. And I would feed off of that more. And then he would, at a certain time point, he would take control of that whole conversation back and say, "You've raised a lot of good points. Can I sleep on it? And can we have this conversation tomorrow morning?" And so I'd go home and I'd, of course, do more ranting and raving and all that sort of thing and go to bed, sleep on it, and get up the next morning, and it wasn't an issue anymore. And so then I'd go to meet with him in the morning, and he'd say, "So what should we do about this?" And I said, "It's really not that big of a deal. I can probably deal with it." And so how this has been significant for me is that whole idea of pausing and thinking before you react or do something is extremely important, because it may not be that big of an issue at the end of the day. And if you were to react at that time, the impact that you may have on others could be a lot more, we'll use the word dramatic or drastic, than thinking about it overnight and then coming back and revisiting it the next morning.
Great. Thank you.
I would like to share my experience, that experience I encountered uh, in my last 2 years back when I was in a job in my rural area. So in India, so the community I was serving is kind of facing a problem in fetching drinking water and finding food. So every day I go and meet them and uh, try to understand them what the actually reason behind that they not get the proper food and the water. So that day I observed after communicate many of the people in the same community that they are like that. So they cannot be come forward and tell us like that kind of problem we are facing. So that day I learned I have to be initiate a conversation with them, and I have to be ask them in a kind of very friendly manner. So from that day I realized it should be in my practice every day when I do communicate at every level, whether it at my age person, then my seniors or my boss or some more senior person. I have to be stay friendly, and this is the way I even trying to be to practicing even I after I moved Canada permanently, and I I trying to be make my habit in a daily, so that how I can make a effective communication with the people around me. So that's the only way I can better serve the people, better serve the community, and yes, more important, with this habit I can bring smile to someone's face. Like so, in the mentoring process also, mentee has having the expectation from mentor. That's correct, but they also see the role model and how better I can be help him. So it's not always to be get rigid and kind of strict with the mentees, kind of discipline. What we have to be flexible. We have to be go out with them, talk them, share some lived experiences, and yes. So connect connection is more important, and it should not be broken. And that's I say, become a friendly with the people is always be helpful to get connect with others. Yeah, from that perspective, as I see observe people that they are like that, but we have to be connect with people. The what potential I have do it, I have to be more explore my potential, not to adopt the someone potentials, but to explore my own potential what I have. So that's I say, and that's ignite me every day. Yeah, that's my potential, and I have to be improved at my potential, and that I'm kind of looking this potential in the other person and push them that it's your kind of strong thing, it's your kind of strong point, you have to be cultivated, then you can achieve whatever you wanted. And yeah, so sometimes not only educated and the high profile person teach, but sometimes those are more vulnerable, those are can't even say something, will teach you if we observe people. So that's I'm learning every day and practicing.
Great. Well, thank you. Appreciate that.